Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and this is Shudderary, where we go behind the screens of Shudder original and exclusive movies. Today, I have two amazing guests, Christian and Mass Tafdrup, who directed and wrote Shudder original movie, Speak No Evil. How are you guys doing?
Thank you.
Doing great,
Great.
thank you. Thank you very much.
First of all, I have to say, I am honored to talk to you guys because that film was wild. Like, I did not expect what to expect that when it was, I was like, what? And I was like, I have to talk to you guys because so many emotions was in that film. Oh my goodness, from the beginning, middle, and to the end. And it was just full of surprises. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I have to tell everyone there will be spoilers, minor spoilers, but there will be some. So I just want to let everyone know in the beginning, I won't spoil so much because I want them to go check it out. See it on Shudder. It is streaming right now. Okay, let's get into it. Okay. Now, what I read is that one of you, I'm not sure who it was, but one of you went on a vacation and you was in a similar situation, but it didn't like pan out like that. You met someone, like a group of family, and hung out, and then they invited you guys back or something like that. That's kind of something what I read. And you came up with this idea like, oh, what if? What if I, take it to another level? So it was like a dark fantasy. Where did that come from? That this family would seem so nice and then just like, what? But they slowly did it. That's what really that I loved about it. Like they just didn't come out and say, hey, we're going to be doing this stuff to you. It was like a very slow process to fill them out. So where exactly did that idea come from?
Well, I think the whole premise it's about not being able to say stop when someone crosses your boundaries. So of course you have to have a story where this couple were too polite or too focused on staying polite. Uh, well, they're being put in this situation over and over again, and just see how it escalates. Um, I think we had multiple comments. At least I have read comments everywhere where people they sort of don't understand why this Dutch couple, are just not tearing them apart from this moment they see them. But that's the whole game. It's up for them to see when will this Danish couple say stop, which they eventually don't at any point. Um, but I think that I think Christian, you had an experience, and we had. I mean, we're brothers, and we've been traveling with our parents since we were kids, and we have been in these situations multiple times where we have met couples or families from other countries, and we have actually went to visit them once in Germany, for example, and it didn't turn out well. Of course, not as it goes in the movie, but the atmosphere was just very off from the beginning. And then Christian and I were talking, what's the worst that could happen? Um, and of course it is a thought experiment. I mean, how far can you take it?
Yeah, so you're right, Mass, that I think this idea came from own experiences before it we found the theme of the film. We were thinking back on our own travels with our parents and how many times we met people abroad, and it's very easy to become holiday friends. We like to meet people abroad that we kind of socialize with and maybe remind us a little bit about ourselves. But if we see these people again in more private circumstances, it's another game. And you're absolutely right. I had an experience with my family some years ago where I met a Dutch family that were very, very nice, but they were also a little bit creepy. And they invited us to stay with them a year after. And because I had all these awkward experiences as a child with mess, I told my girlfriend we should not go. It will turn out bad. So I just think that Mass and I we thought that this was a very recognizable idea, to be guests at somebody's house, to expect the best out of other people, especially people you don't know. You wanna experience good things. You wanna be with people that you don't know, but you want to show the best versions of yourself. So this is a very, very recognizable idea. And as Mass said, it's also a very interesting theme, how long we actually stretch the ourselves and make compromises because we want to keep up the good atmosphere. So it's somebody are crossing your borders all the time. It's actually very difficult just to say, oh, this is uncomfortable, I think we'll leave. You want to keep up good appearance, you want to be a nice person. I mean, I notice by myself, I often think if I don't feel nice at somebody's house or somebody's presence, I think it might be me. I think it's my own, I misunderstood something. I'm also a little bit awkward person. So, all these kind of, you turn it inwards instead of, actually just listening to your intuition. And we thought that was a very interesting premise.
Yeah, and in relation to that, I think you can say that the inspiration, of course, came from own holiday experiences, but I think most of all the inspiration came from our everyday lives and from ourselves and how we do actually behave in these situations. Because I think there's a general tendency that people would normally say, "Oh, if I'm in that situation, I would just get out and leave." But it's different once you're in that situation. I mean, it's
Well,
it's
I
it's
really did
it's
love how
very
you guys showed that, because it did happen slowly and gradually for the family that was hosting. It was Patrick and Karen, where they were, very slowly showing who they really are, instead of upfront, very nice, whatever you need. But then little bits and pieces throughout the film is like, well, wait a minute, that's kind of strange and odd, but is it enough to run away? And they did. But I like how you show the, I'm going to say his name wrong,
Björn,
or
Björn,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. How the camera focused on him, mostly because he is the one that will determine the outcome, how everything is. That's how I felt when I was like, why is he so important? And he's mostly quiet. He's like, looking at other things and just focusing. But then he is going to be somewhat the source or the problem or the reason of the outcome of the entire film. That's kind of what I got. And
Mm.
man, I get where, if you're in a situation where you're not sure how it's gonna end, or if someone put you in an uncomfortable situation, would you just leave? But you also feel like a guest, and you don't want to feel rude. And
Mm.
it's I don't know. I've never been in that situation, but I have been in a situation where I'm
no.
like, should I say something or anything? But man, when they left, I was like, okay, they're gone. But then it's like, oh, my bunny. Like, she needed her bunny. And I was like, is he really going to go back? And there were so many elements on that just, it made you angry. I've talked to so many people who've seen this film and was so angry. They loved the film. I absolutely loved it. But at the same time, I was like, why? They could
Yes.
have done more.
That's what you hear a lot about, especially in horror movies. That if your characters were really wise, the story would be no longer than 10 minutes. I mean, the film would last for more than half the first act. But I think in this situation now we talk about Björn. One thing is that Christian and I have done whatever we could. Really, I think we did a very good job building it, like building suspense, and making it so gradually sort of made Patrick and Karen, the antagonists, show their true faces, so that the Danish couple would always doubt, well, is there something wrong with them, or is it actually us? But I think that now you mentioned Björn after the dinner, that is seeing where he's crying when he's listening to music. I think he's a character that even though he is scared and even though he wants to leave, he needs to go on this adventure. He needs the darkness in his life. He needs to experience something which is from outside his own safe zone, where he spends his entire life with his daughter and his wife in this small apartment where everything is just safe. And I think I can recognize that from my own self. I mean, from my own private life, that I mean, I can long for chaos sometimes. I'm a very privileged uh, white guy living in a very safe environment in a very rich country. I have 3 kids and I live in a beautiful house. I have nothing to complain about. But I am still longing for something that I cannot control. And once I reach that, I mean, that's where I develop. It scares the hell out of me, but there's also something that fascinates me and that drags me towards that. Um, I think it's a very important.
I thought a lot about other horror movies, how your lead characters always, they're trapped in a house because the doors are locked, or there are a lot of weapons, or they just meet evilness and there's a creepy basement and all that. And what I thought was really interesting here was actually that they could leave every minute. It's their own choice that they
Yeah.
stay. And because they do that, things get more and more out of hand. But they have the chance every second to leave. But why don't they? And I thought that was just such an interesting premise in a psychological way that added a lot of depth to it, and also a lot of recognizability to it, because we all do that. We all create our own misery. We all have a million chances to say stop, but we don't. So it was a way for us to kind of turn the genre upside down. And you have all these home invasion movies, and there's nothing the characters can do about it. And I always thought these kind of horror movies are a little bit boring because they are trapped and they're tied up with ropes and guns. In this movie, there are no weapons. So in a way, it is of course about being too polite, not wanting to be rude, but it is also, as Matt said, that they need to go to a dark place. They need some chaos in their life. They don't feel anything anymore. They came away from their, you could say, their human nature. They became so civilized that they're actually longing for somebody to push them a little bit. And so it's these two side of it that of course you're very focused on keeping up appearances, but you also need to develop as a human beings. And if we have to do that, we have to meet something that provokes us a little bit. So for Mass and I, this was a very important element in the story.
Mm. Wow. Have you guys ever read anything on human condition, on the mind of being in that situation? Because, or is it just your own experience? Because like the entire time, like you said, it just felt like the being trapped was in their mind. Like the whole time they're free. I mean, even some of the beautiful landscape where the windmill, it was like they're free, but yet they're trapped.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there
Yeah,
was some
there,
really beautiful looks to that.
Thank you. I think this is a theme that we're very interested in. It's not because we read a lot about it. It's the story we often come up with is very much about very privileged, civilized people. I think because we live lives like that, and we're very focused on social conventions, social codex, social rules. How does that influence modern human beings, and how it attached we are to rules instead of our more primitive instincts. So I think many of the ideas that Mass and I come up with deals with this theme, that we
mm,
think are very, very important, and also to criticize a little bit.
Hmm.
not just a little
You
bit.
know, the most chilling part of this, there's two. One, the whole bathroom. Like they're in there trying to brush their teeth and shower, and it was just invasion of privacy. Like there was absolutely no privacy whatsoever, even though the place had doors. But then I felt that they were being tested to see how far he could go from the dinner to them talking to the kids. I mean, it just was pushing, okay, let me see if I could do this and do that. And nothing is really being said, because if I was there and they invited me for dinner and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, take the bill, I'd be like, excuse me, I guess we're both going to jail because I'm not paying. Like, I would have a voice, and so I find myself talking to the screen. Like what? Like, how can you, and I think that's really cool because it actually engages the audience. You're not just sitting there, you're just really pushing those buttons. The other thing that he said was when everything was going on and they were in that car and he was like, why are you doing this? And then he said, because you let me. And that summed up everything that went on. And then you're sitting there, he's right. I mean, that was the most chilling dialogue in the entire thing, because we didn't need a lot of explanation. That was it. That was all, and then it still just let him. I mean, I was just pulling out like, what? Why? I mean, that is creepy. I mean, I've never seen it done that way, and yet they still was allowed to be free to go and fight. I mean, he just sat. Oh, okay, I'm getting angry.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so good. It was such a great film.
Yeah, and that is the theme of the film. I guess people are different. Some will fight, some will run, some will freeze. But I think this is something that we are not proud of. And this is also what Mads and we like to describe sides of human beings that are a little bit vague or something we don't want to discuss, because we're also used to, from especially American cinema, to see how people become heroes and save the world and save their families. But in real life, I think things are much more difficult. And most people from a Western civilized world are not used to real horror in real life, or, real tragedies. So what do we do when we actually meet that? And a lot of us would not know what to do. And I just thought that is a very bit tabooish, but also very, very common.
Yeah, I'm going to just share a few thoughts with you, because you mentioned this whole thing about, are they testing them? As that's what you experienced, at least, that it all seemed like they had a plan. And from the beginning, Christian and I were actually working with the idea that this Dutch couple had a master plan, that they would actually, and it's not implemented in the film, but we actually thought from the very beginning that they did have a plan, that they were testing them in order for them to actually give them a chance to say stop, which they don't. So you're absolutely right. And when they explained at the very end, when they asked, why are you doing this? Yeah, because you let me. We gave you so many chances to say no. We gave you so many chances to walk away, but you didn't. So because you wanted to stay polite, and because you are so far away from recognizing evil, and you're so far away from fighting back and protecting your lives, your daughter's life, when actually you have identified evil, then this is what you get. I mean, and that's what this film is about. It's about modern and civilized human beings who have become so far away from recognizing who they are and who other people are, and to fight. I mean, because as Christian said, yeah, we've become so accustomed to cinema in general that once our protagonists are in danger, they eventually they will find the tools to fight back. But I think in real life we don't. And I have had so many comments where when we've done Q&As and stuff, and people are always, why don't they fight back? I would fight back. You mentioned it yourself, you would fight back, but a lot of people have never been in those situations. So it's the ideas we have about ourselves, that we like to think of ourselves as someone who would fight back. I would like to think of myself as someone who would fight back if I was assaulted or attacked, or even someone jumped over the line. I mean, over me in the line at the supermarket. But the thing is, when it happens, I stay absolutely silent because I don't know that side of myself when I have to take the confrontation.
Yeah, and Mass has a good point. Try to look at your own life or count every day how many times you want to say something but don't, or you look away, you turn the blind eye to something, because it's also shameful. It's connected with to be embarrassed if you create a conflict, especially in a public space. If somebody jumps the line, and I think it's annoying, uh, some people might say, "Hey, what are you doing?" But many of us would just stand there, be annoyed, don't do anything, because it's also a little bit embarrassing, a little bit awkward, and human beings are pretty afraid of creating awkward moments, especially when you don't know other people so well. So we thought that this very awkward relationships between the two people in couples in the film is something that you really can relate to. And instead of just cutting away, we wanted to stay in it, and because we know these situations very, very well, and we know the bad side of ourselves, and we just thought it would be fun to put that up on screen as a mirror of something where we actually wanted to close our eyes.
Mm. And I read that you were actually having trouble casting because the script was so like intense and people wasn't sure they could do it. Or I mean there's so many things written about, this film, but that was something I read, that it was, people were uneasy with how intense it was. Is that true, or that's just
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
wrote
yeah,
that?
definitely.
Oh,
No, no, I
okay.
mean, not everybody liked this script or this film at all, but everybody thought it was very intense and had a very strong physical reaction to it. But when we did the casting, I had a lot of actors who didn't want to join the casting. And that was especially because they didn't like the last 20 pages. And some of them actually told me that they wanted to come to the casting if we rewrote the ending. That
Mm.
asking the writers to actually rewrite something is kind of rude, right?
Yeah.
but they liked the script until page 70 or something, and then they thought that the movie should have a little bit more of hope, or
Hope,
more like
yeah.
a happy ending. But the good thing is that, and Mass and I, we talked a lot about this, but from a very, very early stage, we decided to make a very, very uncomfortable movie with a very, very dark ending. And we did not want to change that. Not every movie ends up with a happy end or a family surviving evilness. Some movies should end on the other way around. People
Hmm.
lose their lives in real life, and they should also lose their lives in movies. But it seemed that was a very, very provocative premise. So it was very good that we had each other, and we could also look at each other every time we doubted it, and said, remember what we promised. We promised to
The,
make a very dark ending.
yeah, the truth is that we actually did try to rewrite it. We did try
Yeah,
to
we
leave
tried
more
that.
hope. We did try for the Danish couple to survive. The thing is,
Mm.
it was a completely different film because the premise was lost at that point. Because then what is the film about? I mean,
Yeah.
we
It.
looked at each other again, and as Christian said, yeah, we did decide something. We did decide in the very early stage to make, well, first of all, to make the film that we thought would be the best film. I think that's very important when you make when you make something that
And
you know
that's
what's the right
really,
film for you to make.
when people sometimes see your film and don't like it, they sometimes want another film. And when
Mm.
you actually spent 4 years writing something, you've been testing a lot of different things.
Hmm.
And Mess is absolutely right. This is a film about how fatal it can all end up if you don't say stop and listen to your inner voice. But if they survived this, if they came home, it would be like a love story about going through some cruel things, and then you find a balance in life and all that, which is unlike 100,000 other films that does that very well. So it's also about making it clear to your mind, what is this film about, and then go to the end with that.
Mm. Well, I'm so glad you guys did not change it, because it definitely would be a different type of film. I absolutely loved it, even though it was like, it made me angry. um, And it had some moments where I'm just like, why won't they just leave? But I am so glad that you guys left it, because it gave a definite different dynamic. It's something fresh and new. I'm a horror fan, and mostly I love the 80s and 90s, and sometimes those don't have happy endings. I'm tired of horror movies with happy endings. It's like, we got to have some realness, and this was real. Like, I was like, okay, you're right. Would I have done something different? But I have been in situations where I'm just quiet. Not that extreme, something going on, but would you do something? That's a big question mark for a lot of people. So I think this film kind of tapped on that, and it made people angry because they probably realized they probably wouldn't do anything. So I don't know, but the people that were angry about it love the movie. They were just mad.
A lot of people, they're also mad because they're not that used to films ending that bad or being that bleak. So one of the things that I think surprises you, our main characters are having a rough time, but as we're used to, they normally find the tools to fight back. So it came as a surprise for a lot of people that it was that bleak, and that's what I think made quite a few
this is also what I like about horror films. There is some kind of catharsis in watching horror movies because you get connected to darker emotions in yourself. I mean, you can have fear or anger or big emotions that are more tabooish in real life. And I think that's also a reason why we like to watch this film. And we know it's a film. There is something between the story and you, and that's the screen. So in a way, you're seeing a film like this from a safe place. But I think that's the purpose of horror. It is to make a strong physical feeling or reaction in you, and that you leave the cinema and you can't stop thinking about it, and you see these images the rest of your life. I mean, if a horror movie can achieve that, it's not a really good horror movie. So I mean, in Denmark, where the film opened in March this year, all the reviewers liked the film, but they also wrote, don't go see this film. We cannot recommend you because it's so scary or horrible to watch. And half of the audience didn't go see it because they were too afraid of it. But in a way, I think Mads and I achieved what we wanted, to make a horror film that really does an impact and is so terrible that you want to look away. I mean, that's also quality.
Well, it was definitely there. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk to you guys about this film, Speak No Evil. Man, it's one of my tops. It really touches on things that are frightening. The human condition. Would you say something? Would you have a voice if you saw something, or if you were in an uncomfortable situation? And it really touched on the what if you didn't, and this is what could happen. That is scary. That's scary. Because it got me wondering, like, I need to start saying stuff.
Yeah, that's it's a warning and a lesson, maybe.
Yeah, don't make new friends. That's what you can take from it. All right, stay at home.
And go on vacation with someone you hardly know. So I wouldn't. No,
speak to no one.
Thank you so much for watching Shudderary, and there'll be more videos like this. So keep on watching. Thank you.
Thank you.